Hello. Hello, everybody. This is Carr-Gomm. Lovely to see everyone gathering in the circle all over the place. That's great. Lovely to be with you. Welcome. Let me begin while everybody's arriving and getting settled. Let me begin by reading a poem. This is a poem I've just been working. David Bradwell, who has made this wonderful podcast for us called Adventures in Utopia. He's got a lovely voice. Suddenly occurred to me that he could do an audiobook. So he's doing an audiobook of a book I wrote, quite a while ago now. And there's a poem in here that I'd like to read to you. You'll see reference to some contemporary events of about, I don't know, 30 years ago or so. But we could easily substitute current events for those. Shaman for John Agard. Is this the way dawn comes in your country? A hushed leaning, a breathing out of forgotten gods? With your snake eyes, your hands flicking like knotted lightning, you conjure the single shy flower out of our deserts. With your raven voice, your panther silence, you sing back the green ghosts from childhood that we have banished. Poetry is a word for it. We have not looked, but there is something new in this room walking with us. Soul, nakedness, our severed knowledge. Tonight in Brixton, they are burning, maiming, looting for it, for lack of it. In Iran now, petrol bombs bloom orange over ruins that were once its oracle. All our history has come down to this. Heart, without you, our world is narrower and more lethal than a knife point. There must be no more shrinking. Going home beneath icy stars, I pray. Snake, raven, panther, river of steep shadow, do not desert us. Calling in snake, raven, panther, river of steep shadow. The powers of the animals, the powers of nature. Our deep need for connection. Heart, without you, our world is narrower and more lethal than a knife point. There must be no more shrinking. He talks about Brixton, where there were some riots happening back at the time the book was, the poem was published, and Iran, of course, during the war. And now it's Ukraine, it's Iran too, actually, and other places, Yemen and so on. And the poem is actually called Shaman for John Agard, who is an old friend who lives in Lewis here, and his snake eyes and hands flicking like knotted lightning. Poetry is a word for it. He's a full-time poet who is just, works like a shaman, really, with language. So tell me how you're feeling. Heart, connection. That poem perhaps opened us a bit to the heart. How are you feeling in your heart? If you feel okay with sharing it, just type it in. Because always there's a whole range, a whole spectrum here. We're all feeling different things, but somehow we're all connected. And that whole spectrum is a part of the human experience that we're all sharing together. Glad yet worried, a little overwhelmed, sad and depressed. Blessed, fulfilled. We are both tired, busy, but positive today. Intensely aware of the world around me. Feeling peaceful and hopeful. Blessed to be part of this group. Sad today. Yearning. Melancholy, missing my dad while preparing for his funeral. Feeling at peace right now, hibernating. Dark inside, very sad and scared. Solid and connected. loved, beloved, lovable, and loving. Disconnected, nostalgic today. Feeling really awesome, finally discovering the spiritual way that I'm liking so much. Finally had to admit that age is taking its toll. Apprehensive, anxious, full, open to the shining joy of the natural world. Flowers still open, birds sing, the world continues. Though horrors are being committed, we all need moments of peace and calm, for without there is only chaos. Much troubles in the world, yet much beauty as well. Heart beauty. The beauty of spring has come. Yes, I think it's so important, isn't it? I mean, as there is so much difficulty in the world, and yet there's so much beauty too. Today in the afternoon, we were with our granddaughter, beautiful, beautiful granddaughter who's 7 months old. She's just such a happy baby. And the joy just literally bubbles up from inside her and flows out of her. And this led me to this feeling, this realization about how the feelings don't belong to us. And that might sound bad, but it's good. They bubble up. So feelings of joy, you can see these feelings of joy. Where are they coming from? Bubbling up and flowing out. Inspiration doesn't belong to us. It flows into us, through us, from us, out of us, from some deep source. And that's at the cornerstone of Druidry, at the heart of Druidry, is this concept of letting go of ownership. If you let go of ownership, it's a paradox. Like all these things, one has to take into account the opposite as well, to fully own our lives, to own our bodies, to own our feelings, to own our thoughts. Because without that, we're in denial and we can behave irresponsibly and without care for others. So we have to own all these things, own our creative output, own what we give to the world. But there's another side to this, which is freeing ourselves, letting go of that sense of ownership and allowing the idea that we don't own the inspiration that comes to us. This is the idea of Arwen, that it just flows through us, that ideas are out there waiting to find us to partner with, to express in the world. Very powerful idea, very liberating too. And one of the things it liberates you from is the drive to fulfill your potential. You know, the way maybe from an early age, you've been seeking to fulfill your potential. It may have started in school for those kind of school reports that say, Philip has such a lot of potential. It's a shame he's not fulfilling it and squandering it and so on. And then that carries on with the urgings of pop psychology to fulfill our potential. But here's an idea I'd like to suggest to you that I find incredibly powerful, which is this, that you can never fulfill your potential because your potential doesn't belong to you. There is endless potential. Potential is a field of possibility. And you tap into that. And then whatever you tap into flows through you and you express it in your daily life, in who you are, in how you act in the world, in what you write and what you paint and what you cook. So it's not as if there's some kind of bunch of potential that you're born with. And then your job is to develop that. And there's always that tension because you always feel you haven't quite developed it. How can I fulfill my potential? I haven't yet fulfilled my potential. We all, I'm sure, have these thoughts in us. But if you turn it around and you let go of that thought for a while, but if you just allow the possibility that potential doesn't belong to you, that potential is an unlimited field of possibility, infused with Arwen, infused with the ability and power to inspire you, that is a manifestation perhaps of higher consciousness, consciousness of extraordinary beings, deities, deity that wants to express this through you. Incredibly liberating. I find it incredibly liberating. Hannah says, I think people just want to feel fulfilled rather than fulfill their potential. Well, that's interesting. And I don't know what your experience is, Hannah, but I find that I feel fulfilled when I'm letting the Arwen flow, when I'm letting possibility and potential flow through me. And Drake says, and allowing the listening to arrive, the moment to present itself, so I can see it without the clutter of thinking. I must be directing the play I am in. Tricky thing with personal development and spiritual development and all this kind of field that we're interested in is it's so easy to drop into becoming dogmatic, to suggesting that you've got this little insight into truth, or you've got this, just as perhaps I've done just now about this whole potential thing, like I've got this insight. But I think as long as one presents them in such a way that they're open and they're up to us to consider, it's not like a dogma. It's just, hey, had you ever thought of that? Let's maybe consider this. And is this helpful to you? And I found when the idea came to me, I was working on a course about fulfilling potential, because that's been a strong driver for me for many years of how can I fulfill my potential? A kind of feeling that I've never quite fully expressed myself. And that's been, it's probably had a value in kind of pushing me to write and speak more and so on. But the downside is it's kind of, what's the word? It's a kind of drivenness that can be burdensome in some way. So I was working on developing a course on how to fulfill one's potential, where suddenly this idea just flowed into me. It's like, no, it's not about that, because it's not your potential. There's this endless potential. You can never, and that connects with the idea in the Grail tradition about the Grail being a source of endless food, an endless story. And the bards saw the cauldron of Caridwen, the cauldron of the goddess, as a source of endless nourishment. If you can gain access to the Arwen, if you can find your role as storyteller, you'll never run out of stories. Jen is saying that in terms of writing her poetry. As a poet, nothing comes to me when I feel like I'm supposed to be writing. But when I simply stay open to inspiration, ideas come in the most unexpected moments. Okay, many, many blessings, much love, and see you next week. Okay, bye. Stay connected and join us again soon for more magical insights.